Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications in. I am in by the skin of my teeth, and you should have seen me running around here before midnight. I did it by the skin of my teeth. It counts. I'll take it. And you know what? It wasn't that I didn't utilize that time. Well, I have been working all evening on getting my campsites done. I finished literally 2 minutes ago. Let's hope I didn't make a mistake. I just dished out over $600 for these campsites. If you don't know, I'm going on a big trip in September. You know, I really believe that we need to be motivated. As a child growing up, I was put on a reward and punishment kind of system. This is the way my parents worked. But also at the same time, there were always incentives. There were always little hints or little tastes of the dazzle and amaze, just so we could feel that it was possible, that we could see that it was possible. And I think this is what I do a little bit. You know, I've been doing these trips now for a very, very long time, decades probably. And I do them once a year, but each year they seem to get a little bit more magnificent. And in the past few years, I have to say that I'm grateful that my life and my circumstances have improved so much as I made the most magnificent vacation. I could have pretty much done anything I wanted for a vacation for 2 weeks. Anything that I could have dreamed up, I could have done that. And I am being drawn and I am looking forward to, like, I actually hunger to be out on the road, hunger to be out in the bush, hunger to be by the lakes, hunger to be by myself, right? You know, I get my days off and I take full advantage of those days off. But I know that it's important for me to mix and mingle, right? To rub well. And sometimes, right, you think you don't rub well, but it's only because it doesn't feel comfortable. And we know that some achievements and some recognitions and some people, some events, something we strive for, it doesn't always feel good, right? But I take that as a good sign. I really pushed it tonight. I truly didn't think that I was going to make it in, but I challenged myself and I did it. Today we're picking a new word. We pick, and if you haven't never popped into my life before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And for the past 48 weeks now, we have been pulling a powerful word on Monday randomly and just kind of working with it, whether it's a conversation through an experience, an adventure, maybe it's a interaction or a story that belongs to somebody else. Sometimes, we don't really know. We just have to kind of fly by the seat of our pants and ride the waves as something tries to come through for us to get a lesson. I haven't failed, right, to get a lesson, and whether or not those lessons were good or not, because I try to serve them up just in my conversations. I really do. I think for a lot of people, especially the highly sensitives and the empaths, we have gone through the ringer a little bit. And I said, like I just said when I came in, I really appreciate that alone time. I appreciate, creating that amazing reward, that amazing goal that I set before myself and just hacked away with it. It's nowhere near complete. But when you've got that major effort or those major resources invested in what you're moving with, well, that's kind of right. That's the stick with the bag on the end because you do not want to lose the bag, right? You do not want to see those failures come from your investments, but it happens. It always happens, whether it's an investment in your physical, right? Your emotional, your pocketbook, right? Just in that frustration and fear sometimes, because sometimes we lay it all on the line, don't we? But back to that idea that we pick a powerful word every week on a Monday. Today is Monday. We are picking our 48th powerful word. We're going to spend a couple of minutes in perspectives because, right? Now I have to go back in. I have to double check to make sure I got it all right? I don't know what I can do if I've got it all wrong. I'm sure there's something, but I'm sure it will cost me if I didn't get it right. So it was important for me to do a good job and to take my time. I did take my time in that, but what time I had left over is what time I had left over. And I scurried in that, and I apologize if my live tonight, right, is the sacrifice for that amazing achievement in a goal that I'm working towards, right? Something, that 6, 7 years ago I could have only have dreamed for myself. And I'm doing this with a little part-time job that's putting a roof over my head. And I don't know if I'm handling my money better or if it's just my pure determination not to fail online because right, I come here fresh like a loaf of bread and I share it, you guys. Right? So whether it's a success or a failure, you guys are going to see it. You guys are going to get to judge that and you're more than welcome to because it's part of that conversation, right? Just pop in and have that contribution in what I'm doing because I'm going to pick through everything and anything that comes across my path and give it a fair moment, right? Hello, Dave. Nice of you to pop in. You came in just in time. We're just about to pick our powerful word, our 48th powerful word. We're getting close. 6 more weeks. I was just saying, Dave, I just finished booking all my camping spots. I paid for them all. It is a road trip, you guys. Definitely, it is a road trip because I am spending practically every single night in a different place on this vacation. And I remembered last year when I came out of my September trip, I says, next year I'd like to spend, maybe a couple of days in each one of these camp spots. But the distance I was going, and because I was driving in that, so I only have a certain amount of time in order to get it done. And because I don't want to have long spans of driving, I don't want to drive more than 7 hours. I tried to cut it back again another long one because I have in the beginning of my trip I have 3 days where I'm doing long drives and then each other drive after that is 3 hours long. And then my trip after coming back in from the States from my Herkimer dig, right? I've got another almost 7 hour drive to my next destination. And I know when it says 7 hours, it's going to take me 10. But at least it's all done now. I know I got a roof over my head, right? And I have a roof over my head no matter what because I'll be setting up the SUV, right? Or the SUV, like my own RV. It's going to be amazing, you guys. Amazing. We're going to have the best time ever. Yeah, no, I've got, I think, five days that I'm driving over 6 hours each day. The first 3 days for sure, I am driving over 6 days because I have to get into that area in Ontario that I want to be, and I can't do it by dilly dally. And even though it says 6 hours, like I said, it's going to tag on a couple extra hours for me. I think I did a beautiful job in my campsites. I took my time in picking my campsites too. Uh, right. I love the water. I love beautiful landscapes. So I tried to get those water views where I could. But lots of times those water views come with lots of people. And so I use those opportunities when I do get those camp spots to put them in places where there is a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, right, but there are more people than just me out there, so I have that opportunity to have people come across my path and for me to cross others paths at the same time, right? It is going to be an amazing adventure, but it ain't going to happen unless we get to our 48th word, you guys, right? Because this project that we're doing, 54 Powerful Words, it's ending, and then we're going to go into the production part of getting my deck of powerful words printed and distributed. I don't know. Right? We'll see what kind of help Cindy can drum up in that. Right? Even if it's even if study whether or not if it's even a feasible idea. I'm right. I believe that it is, but I can believe whatever I want because in the end, it's the customer who's going to dictate whether or not something works or doesn't. Okay, you guys, let's do a few minutes. First perspective in this powerful word that we're picking this week. If we've done the word game, we're just going to go up the list and we'll just pick the next word that hasn't been done yet. You guys, our next word for this week is moving up. You guys, this is a strange word. I don't know. I noticed that I had this word on my list. It's really curious because you might think that it's a tough word. You might think it's a word of ignorance or a word of pushing back in something that's trying to teach you or move you. But what if that's something that is right trying to make you think that it's teaching you and moving you is in truth is what the pushback is truly holding us back. We figure lots of times that just because somebody lives this way, that we're supposed to be living this way too. Each one of us are individuals, and this is something that I learned very, very early. I grew up in a very dynamic household. I am my own person, but at the same time, I am my father's daughter. And because we are, right, the people that we surround ourselves with, and as children, we don't really get much of a say in that. It was an amazing adventure. My father was an amazing, amazing man, but he didn't always get it right. And like I said, it was a dynamic family, but a dynamic family nonetheless with lots and lots of issues. And it rubbed, I was thinking about it today, it did rub on each one of us kids in a different way. We have strengths and weaknesses, all of us. I'm just not talking about my sister, but I'm talking about everybody, right? Each one of us have handicaps. Each one of us have strengths in us, weaknesses and strengths. But this word this week, when we talk about, right, my dynamic family, is a word that I grew up in my childhood, in my preteens, and as my adult. And you might not think it's a powerful word. You might think it's a rude word or an ignorant word. It was my word. And when I was looking for my one word, kind of felt bad that it was my word because I was taught that our words are powerful words, right? They're supposed to be powerful words, right? And somehow this word made it into my list. I don't know, Dave, if you remembered what that word might be or if I ever spoke of it before. But that one word that we got this week, word number 48, is this word despite. This word despite. It's not a very positive word, is it? Right? But it was a word that kept me moving. It was a word that allowed me permission to take my piece, my pie in my life. Right? Despite what anybody thinks. I'm doing this. Despite you think this way. I don't think this way, right? And because you're the authority in this, right? I'll move because that's the way the authority says. But nobody has control over this except for me, right? And so, when I noticed a wrong, and it didn't even have to be for me, it didn't have to be, examples, bullying and stuff. It didn't even have to be somebody bullying me, bullying somebody else, right? It just was not right. And even though I wasn't allowed to get into fights or arguments, sometimes I couldn't help myself, right? Sometimes that bullying, sometimes that pushback, sometimes, those little bites and those course of actions that people take. And you hold on to it as strong as you can, right? If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? So I had to learn, right, that despite that I think what you're doing is wrong, despite that I know what you're doing is wrong, I'll follow suit because that's the majority and that's how we move, right? It's like when you live in a country with dictatorship and stuff. Sometimes that the way you live is not right, is not proper, but because you don't get to make the say in that, you don't get to have the call in that, you have to some extent to move with that majority, or right, you're going to find yourself arrested, you're going to find yourself in jail, you're going to find yourself ostracized, and you're going to find the people around you quite often being used, right, in a way to pinch you into doing and thinking and feeling a way that somebody else wants you to feel. Lots of times I moved with others, right? Despite, right? When I was wanting to be popular, when I wanted to be in with the in groups, quite often I had to meld myself, I had to chameleon into characters that would be a little bit more presentable, a little bit more acceptable, right? Even knowing that that wasn't me, but I wanted to belong, and I was able to make friends that way. But they could never be long lasting friends unless I could be myself in that, right? So I had to voice the things that I didn't believe in, the things that weren't right, I had to move away from the people who were living a certain way that didn't jive with the way that I was living or the way that I wanted to live. And I was just doing this naturally without any lessons because that was just my upbringing. That was just in the programming, right? But like I said, nobody had any control, and I had no idea why I was able to see what wasn't right. But I was, and I'm grateful for that. So I didn't really have a choice because if it's wrong, right? And so, despite what people would say, and this is where I would get myself into trouble, this is where I would get bullied, this is where I get picked on, this is where I would be ostracized. You know what I mean, right? Right? People would turn their backs on you, backs on me, right? Because I did stand true to a lot of my truths, a lot of my beliefs, even when I wasn't even woke to any of these ideas. It did give me a little bit of leeway, I think, when, things kind of didn't snap together right away, but when things started bubbling to the surface, right, I did get that idea of, you know what, that's the way, right? That's why I had that word despite. Because the one thing despite has in it, right? It might not be a positive word, right? Right? You might not think it's a powerful word, but it was full of lessons for me. It moved me forward, and even though it wasn't always comfortable, it offered up lessons that allowed me to hold my own, right? To be a little bit more straightforward in my beliefs, to push back a little bit in what was pushing up against me, right? And if I had to go with the majority that I didn't believe in, I would just keep reminding myself, right? Right? It's up to me. It's up to me. And I could just hold on to my beliefs, but then also at the same time, I have to remember what happens when your beliefs, when you vocalize them, that sometimes they don't rub well with others, right? And then that's where we can find ourselves in those situations, right? And as a kid and as a teenager, I did get myself in those situations. My mother had this pink dress that she got at a secondhand store when I was a little kid. Well, probably 12 or 13 years old because I had this dress for a while. But it wasn't pink anymore. It was gray. That's how old it was. It was a dress from the 50s that she picked up in a thrift store in the 70s. And whenever she heard, or the principal or a teacher or a parent or a kid come knocking on the door saying, Cindy's fighting, she'd put me in this dress and she'd make me wear this dress to school every single day. That was painful, and that was very hurtful because it was punishment for standing up to my own truth, and I didn't have a choice in that, right? Because despite any pushback, despite any blowback, despite retribution or what anybody said or did, right? Those were my beginning lessons in resilience, in holding my own. You guys, this week we got the word, and I'm just gonna highlight it, highlight it off right now because it is an amazing word. Despite. Despite I am taking my piece of pie, right? Despite whether or not anybody thinks I deserve my amazing vacation coming up, I deserve it, right? I've worked hard for it. And, right, I'm using every tool and every lesson I've picked up along the way to make it even more dazzling and amazed than it was last year. And in those little things, hiccups and fails that I did, right? Running out of money, right? Just not having the right camping spots, that no deposit boxes, and right, I missed out on a couple of great spots, and I drove way out of my way to get to those spots just to have to turn around and find a park that actually had a headquarters, a ranger station. So I doing things a little bit better, and every year, like I said, this dream vacation that I put together for myself, and that reward for myself, that rewards my brand because they're adventure videos, right? Adventure videos full of inspiration and motivation and fun and evidence that it can be done. People say, I can't do that. I didn't wake up to any of these ideas until I was 57 years old. I'm treading I'm treading water. It's never too late to make a little bit of progress for your future, because I can guarantee you, right? No matter how old you are, right? No matter how late you came into the game, it's never too late. Okay, you guys, we got this word despite. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Um, Yeah, I'm actually going to explore an abandoned mine. Dave was asking if I was going to do some exploring. Yes, I'm going to do an abandoned mine, at least one of them. I have no idea what's on the road. I'm going to be up in northern Ontario, Dave. I know you know the area well. Um, but but yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll give you guys more information along the way. It's just also because I work in social media, I have to make sure that my dates and my sites are kind of for me, and you guys will get the gist of most of it when the videos get put up after my return from my trip. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer, and we'll see each other